Guys, so first what we're going to start out with is a nice little warm-up on solving equations. So take a moment right now, pause the video, and try solving these 4 equations. Alright, there's the 4 answers. Double check your work. So what we're going to be doing today is moving into the next chapter, which is chapter 6. And the first lesson is on angle measures. So the first part of this lesson is something that you guys are going to be a little bit familiar with. But as always, as going throughout the PowerPoint, if I am going too fast, you can pause the video whenever you need to. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Remember, I will be holding office hours for you guys. And those office hours are Tuesdays and Fridays from 10 to 10:30. So, going through this, what you guys are going to be able to do, and before I say what the split bat are, is the note sheets are posted for you guys, so if you want to download them, fill them in digitally, or handwrite them, they're posted for you guys in the folder. But what you guys are going to be able to do is write and solve equations to find unknown angle measures and classify angles based on angle measures. So, going into it, parts of an angle. So let me just draw an angle so then you guys can see what it looks like. So this right here would be considered an angle. And based on your notes, the way that they have it is that this is A, B, C, and this part is 60 degrees. Okay, so parts of an angle. An angle is formed by 2 rays with a common endpoint. So in this case, B to A would be a ray, and B to C would be a ray, meaning point B right here is the common endpoint. So B was the endpoint. Now for you guys, the common endpoint is called the vertex. So that's the main important part that you guys need to know, is that this middle letter of your angle is called the vertex, and your rays are called the sides. So B right here is called the vertex, and this is a side, and this is a side. Okay? Now, naming angles. When you name an angle, you're going to use the angle symbol, which looks like just like a capital letter L, but it's a little more slanted. Angles are typically named using 3 letters, where the middle letter must be the vertex, okay? So the middle letter must be the vertex. Angles can also be named using just the vertex if it's the only angle located. So what that means is in this figure up here, you could call that angle B. But if you were given a diagram like this one, and you had like A, B, C, and D, you can't call it angle B because you have this center ray right here, okay? So this one you can't name by the vertex. Angle measures, when referring to the measures of an angle, we always use a lowercase m, and what that means is the M stands for measure, okay? So, going over to the next slide, or before I do that actually, if I name this angle up at the top of the slide, and you guys have it off to your side, but to name it, what I would name it is angle A, B, C. Okay, so you have A, B, C, where the middle letter is my vertex. I could also name it as angle C, B, A. It's just written in reverse order. Or I can name it angle B. Now, showing the measurement. To show the measurement of an angle, you would simply write lowercase m, angle A, B, C equals, and then the measure of that angle is 60 degrees. Alright, going on now. So, types of angles. Think about the different types of angles, and you guys learned about these last year. So take a moment and think about them. So pause the video real fast. So there's 4 types of angles, all right? And I'm just going to draw the figures to see if maybe that'll help refresh some of your memories. Are they coming back to you now? They probably are at this point. So let's go through and identify what each of them are. So this first one here, what would that be considered? You said acute. You are correct. So that's an acute angle. What do you know about acute angles? So if you're telling me that they measure between 0 degrees and 90 degrees, you're correct. Now this next angle here is a good right angle. And remember, this little box right here tells you it's a right angle. Now, they measure exactly 90 degrees, okay? No more, no less. The next one, obtuse. And they measure between 90 and 180 degrees. And then the last one here, this is the one where you guys normally get tripped up, but this is called a straight angle. Okay, it's like a straight line, but we call it a straight angle, and it measures exactly 180. Okay, so they're the 4 main types of angles, okay, and they're the types of angles. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at being able to name and classify our angle based on the type. So, example 1, name the vertex of the angle. Now remember, the vertex is the middle letter, okay? So the middle letter in this example right here. Well, if I notice, the middle letter here is K, and we use a capital letter to represent our vertex. Okay, so it has to be a capital letter. Now name the sides. Remember, sides are made up of rays. Okay, so if you need that off to the side for yourself, so sides are made of 2 rays. So a ray has an endpoint and then extends out. So in this case, one of my rays I'll say is KJ. And to show a ray, we draw a line with an arrow pointing over where your vertex always comes first. And then the next one would be KL. Now, give 3 ways to name the angle. Well, based on my vertex, there's only one letter there and no other rays coming out of it, so I could call it angle K. You could call it angle JKL, or you could call it angle LKJ. Now, classifying the angle. Looking at it, what type of angle does that look to be? If you said obtuse, you are correct. Okay, so we're naming the angle based on the middle letter, which is K. I need to name the sides. So the sides are made up of rays. So they start at the vertex and then they extend out. Okay, so that green one's 1, and then this blue one is the second. So you have ray KJ and ray KL. And then naming it using 3 ways. You can name it based on the middle vertex. You can use going this way. Or you could name it going in the opposite direction and working backwards. Alright. Let's look at this next one. So name based on the vertex. Okay, so your vertex is the middle letter, so that would be a capital letter R. Name the sides. Remember they're rays, so here's 1. So it'd be ray RS. And then you have ray RQ. 3 ways to name the angle. So you can name it based on the vertex. So I have angle R. And then just going around. So I could go angle QRS. Or we could go angle SRQ. So classifying it, well, there's a clear indicator, this right here. So that tells me it's going to be a right angle. Okay. Well, let's keep going. Again, if I'm going too fast, you can pause the video at any point. Alright, so solving for angle measures. So, looking at number 1, the measure of angle A is 12x minus 5. If x equals 9, find the measure of angle A, then classify. So they give me an expression and they give me a value for the variable. So in this case now, what you're going to do is you're going to evaluate this expression for x is equal to 9. So that means we're going to have to plug this in for x. So then this now becomes 12 times 9 minus 5. So now simplifying, you get 108 minus 5, and that's 103. So answering the question, because this says the measure of angle A, so I want to show measure angle A equals 103, and angles are degrees, and then classifying it. So 103 degree angle would have to be obtuse. Okay, so you take the expression and you plug in your value, and then you simplify and rewrite it and classify. So looking at number 3 off the notes now. The measure of angle H is 14 minus 2x. If x equals negative 6, find the measure of angle H, then classify. So I have to find the measure of angle H and classify the angles. So we have to do the same concept. So 14 minus 2 times negative 6. So this becomes 14, negative is a positive 12. So this becomes 26 now. So now I'm going to say the measure of angle H equals 26 degrees. And 26 is an acute, nice and small, it's an acute angle. Alright. We doing okay? Here's the next one. So the measure of angle C is 19x minus 3, and the measure of angle D is 8x plus 10. Find if the sum of the measures is 115, find the measure of each angle. So this one's a little bit different. It gives me 2 angle measures. So C is this, and D is 8x plus 10. Then it's telling me sum is 115. What do we know about sum? If you said it's the answer to addition, you're correct. So that means when I take the measure of angle C and add it to the measure of angle D, it has to equal 115. So now I'm going to show what angle C is, which is 19x minus 3 plus the measure of angle D, which is 8x plus 10 equals 115. So at this point now, you have an equation. So what you're going to have to do is first combine your like terms. So 19x and 8x is 27x. And then you have negative 3 and positive 10, which is positive 7, is equal to 115. Keep solving, so subtract 7, you get 27x is equal to 108. So now you have a one-step equation, divide by 27, and you get x to equal 4. Now, I'm not done though, because it says find the measure of each angle. So now you're going to take your value of x is equal to 4 and have to plug it into both. So now to find the measure of angle C is going to be equal to 19 times 4 minus 3. And I need to solve for the measure of angle D, which is going to be 8 times 4 plus 10. Okay, so solving these, 19 times 4 is 76 minus 3. So the measure of angle C is going to be 73 degrees. Doing the same thing for angle D, 8 times 4 is 32. 32 plus 10. That means the measure of angle D is equal to 42. Okay, so in this case, we knew all the skills. We just had to pay close attention to what they were asking us with this value of sum. So let's look at the next one then. The measure of angle E is 18 degrees more than the measure of angle F. If the sum of the measures of the two angles is 96, find the measure of each angle. So it says angle E is 18 degrees more than angle F. Well, more than means what? If you said addition, that's correct. Okay, so now let's just show what angle E is and what angle F is. I wrote that wrong. Measure of angle F equals, well, it says the measure of angle E is 18 degrees more than angle F. So angle E is bigger than angle F. And since we don't know exactly, it just says more than angle F. Since I don't know what exactly F is, I'm going to use a variable of x, meaning angle E is x plus 18. Okay, so now I have to go with this next part. If the sum of the measures of the two angles is 96, so that means when I take the measure of angle E plus the measure of angle F, that has to equal 96. Well, we just figured out what E and F are, so we're going to put them in. Simplify, so combine like terms. Solve your two-step equation. Solve your one-step. So x is equal to 39. So now the big question is find the measure of each angle. Well, the measure of angle F is really easy because it's just x, which we discovered is 39 degrees. And then the measure of angle E is equal to x plus 18. So that would become 39 plus 18, which would give us 57 degrees. So angle F is 39 and angle E is 57. Okay, I know these ones are a lot, but you guys are perfectly capable of doing them. So what I want for you guys to do is try 2, 4, 6, and 8. Pause this video, and then when you finish the 4, press play again, and I'll have the answers for you. Alright guys, there they are. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Attend my office hours. Whatever you feel comfortable with doing. Remember, these two right here are the ones that are going to give you the most trouble. So, let's look at going through a few other types of angles. So you have vertical angles. So there are two angles that are across from one another when two lines intersect. So vertical angles, we've already talked about this, are congruent. And congruent means equal. So what I do is I like to call these the bow tie angles also, because they're angles that are directly across from one another. So like 2 and 4 would be considered vertical, and 1 and 3. Well, the reason why I call them bow tie is because if you notice 1 and 3, so if I draw this in for you guys, this looks a lot like a bow tie. If you're not sure what a bow tie is, Mr. Belfort would wear them to school, so if that helps you. Glenn Hurricane Schwartz from NBC 10 News, he wears the bow ties also. But they form a bow tie, okay? And it doesn't matter if it's vertical or horizontal, you still see that bow tie effect, okay? So they kind of go like, or an hourglass or the timer from any games, okay? So, angle 1 would be considered to be congruent to angle 3 because they're directly across from one another. And angle 2 is congruent to angle 4 because they're across from one another. Remember, since they're congruent, that means equal. So the angle measures for angle 1 and 3 are equal to one another, and the angle measures for 2 and 4 are equal to one another. So that's vertical angles. The next type of angles are adjacent. So adjacent angles are two angles that share a common vertex and side. They're also next to each other. So looking here, this is an example. So they share a common vertex, so in that case this would be B, and they share a side, which would be this ray right here. Okay, they're right next to one another. Right? Now, with vertical angle or adjacent angles, they're not congruent to one another. What you need to know is that the measure of angle, this angle of 5 and this angle of 6, have to add up to equal the full angle. Okay, so that means the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 6 has to add up and equal the measure of angle A, B, C. Okay, they don't have to be any specific angle measures or anything like that. They just have to add up to equal the full angle. Complementary angles. There are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. Okay, so if you notice, it has the little box to represent a 90-degree angle. Well, if I take 7 and 8, they have to give you that 90. So the measure of angle 7 plus the measure of angle 8 has to equal 90 degrees. And then you have supplementary, or supplementary two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. So that means 9 and 10 have to add up to equal 180. So the measure of angle 9 plus the measure of angle 10 has to equal 180 degrees. So if you notice, supplementary angles also form a straight line. Okay, so if that helps you, you can write it. Alright, so now, classifying angles. Classified based on using all names that apply. So that's based on the 4 types we were just talking about. So you have vertical, you have adjacent, you have complementary, and I'm just going to write it as, I'll fit it, and you have supplementary. Now, they're not always going to be two names. Sometimes it could just be one, okay? But classify each pair of angles using all names that apply. Well, automatically, I'm looking at angle 1 and angle 2, okay? Angle 1 and angle 2, they're right next to one another, right? So that tells me that first, they're adjacent. And then looking at the diagram, I see this little box right here, which tells me complementary. Okay? Alright. So, looking at number 2 now, they're just next to one another. So that tells me adjacent. Now, they don't form a straight line, so they can't be supplementary. I don't see the little box to represent complementary, so they can't be that. And they're not vertical of one another. So, then in this case, it would just be considered adjacent to one another. Alright, next what I'm going to do with you guys is going to be number 5. So if you notice, they're not next to one another. However, you have 2 separate angles right here, okay? I want to see if it fits any one of these 4 here. Well, to do that, I'm just going to add my 2 angle measures together. And doing so, I get 180 degrees. Well, 180 represents one of these classifications. It's the one that says the sum of the 2 angles is 180 degrees. Well, looking back, that tells me it's going to be supplementary. So they don't have to be right next to one another all the time for a classification. They can be separated. Alright, I'm going to pause the video and you guys try 3, 4, and 6. Alright guys, double check your work. Okay. Looking at another figure now, okay? This is still doing classification. There's just a little bit more to the picture. And it's just naming it based on the numbers, okay? So if I look, angle 2 and angle 3. Well, looking at angle 2 and angle 3, they form this part right here, okay? And then has the little box. So that tells me that, 1, they're complementary. And yes, you have to write it out. And they're right next to each other, so that tells me adjacent. Alright. Now, let's look at number 10. So I'm looking at angle 3 and angle 5. Well, let's see if I make the bow tie. I do. So angle 3 and angle 5 would be considered vertical. Now, they can't be considered anything else because they don't add up to equal 180 and they don't add up to equal 90 and they're not next to one another. So it would just be vertical. Alright, what I want you guys to do is try the next 4. Alright, there you have it. I am running out of time for this video link, so you guys are going to have to watch the next video link to finish out the notes. So, please open the next video link and it'll say part 2. Alright?